run a bit late. It's kind of normal. Chris Evans, 24 minutes ago. Yeah, only 4 minutes late. Need to charge. So what's the number today? How many people? Before we start. We got 10. What's it gonna be? How many people can we get? Someone give me a number. Martin's thanking me for tires. You're welcome. Did he win at least? Looking for the world's main. Is it online somewhere? $69. Okay, the number is 69 because this is the 69th Facebook Live I'm doing. What's your comeback to Mayfield's call out at the Worlds? We did a 2-hour comeback. We did a, not a Facebook Live. We did a podcast with Keenan. That was my comeback. So you're gonna have to listen to that. It's called No Name RC Podcast. And you can find it on iTunes or Podbean and go listen to that. I have a comeback to Mayfield there. So we need 69 people. So better share this. I mean, Europe's asleep, but we have America and we have Asia. So North and South America we have Asia, Australia, New Zealand. Should be enough. Well, I guess I can answer a few questions that people are asking here before we start. So someone's asking about Silver State and the first RCGP race clashing. And that's too bad. It's the first weekend of May. Both races are on the same weekend. Same thing happened this year. So the RCGP is replacing the Philippine Masters. And those two races clashed this year also, the first weekend of May. So it can't be helped. I think that there weren't going to be many Americans coming over anyway, and the only guys that would have come most likely are the guys on RCGP teams, and they'll be there regardless. So they will miss Silver State and they will be at the RCGP. That's what I think will happen. But I doubt that there were many Americans planning on going to do the open class. And I think if someone seriously was planning to, then I think they'll still go. Was it Ryan Mayfield? Was Ryan Mayfield the one that said David had a gyro? I don't know. Oh, we're at 68. Maybe Captain can join and we'll be 69. I don't know. I don't know who it was that got IFMAR to check for gyros, but the word in the pits was that it was Gord Tessman. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but based on everything I've heard, I'm confident in saying that it was the American drivers, mechanics, team personnel who were talking about gyros and eventually got IFMAR to check for gyros. Who was it that told them? I don't know. I was told it was God. And Ongaros themselves even posted on Facebook saying it was Mayfield. So it was probably a combination of all those people. How's the electric guitar treating you? Well, I haven't really properly started practicing yet. Are you going for double geriatric world champion? Well, I'm gonna have to wait at least 5 more years for that because they changed the rules. So after I dominated that class, then they just raised the age limit. So it's not gonna be 35 anymore. It's gonna be 40 or 45. I don't know which one they decided. So I'm 35, so I can't do it next time. Shane Barry is saying he's doing the Philippine Masters. That's really good. Have you ever even been outside of America? Okay, we have enough people, so I think we have to start. But first, I need to find something here on this video. You know this front row screens thing? They did a great job, but I hate this split screen. I had a split screen here. Terrible. On reflection afterwards, what are your thoughts on watering? Okay, let's talk about watering a bit while I look for something here on a video. Now, I'm against it. I'm against it if the races we do are so heavily based on qualifying, racing the clock. If that's what we're doing, we're there for 5 days to practice, then we're there for 3 days to qualify, and the whole time we're just racing the clock, not the other cars. Then it's pointless to water the track. If you're gonna water the track, then don't focus on qualifying and racing the clock because the track changes so much. If we are to race the clock and then compare our times to other heats, then we should try and keep the tracks as consistent as possible. If this track breaks up and gets dusty and isn't good if you don't water it, then don't host the Worlds there. It's as simple as that. Either change the format to where you're racing the other cars on the track or go to tracks which are consistent. So I think it's not really a good excuse to say that, oh, this track needs to be watered. Then don't have the IFMA Worlds there. It's just a waste of time for everyone to spend 5 days there first practicing, then go into qualifying and then have a slow track compared to everyone else. And you might say, oh, it's the same for everyone, but it really isn't. Because if you had a wet track in the morning, it was a much bigger difference than in the afternoon. In the morning, if you had a wet track, you were slower. Everyone was. In the afternoon, the wet track dries quick, and some drivers were faster on the wet track, some drivers were faster on the dry one, so it was less of a difference. Then in the evening again, then it made a bigger difference. And you might look at the top drivers and say, well, the best drivers were always at the top, so it doesn't matter. Well, that's just because the best drivers are really, really good at adapting. And it's not quite the case, but almost the case that regardless of what happens, the best drivers are going to find their way to the top. They're just so good. They are so skilled and so talented. What you have to look at is the drivers who place, let's say, 15th to 50th. That gap there. There, the track played a huge difference. Let's say if you got lucky, so the drivers who normally place ahead of you, they had a slow track, and then your heat was on a fast track. So for example, let's say in the afternoon round, you're the first heat, so you're on a dry track in daytime, and then the drivers who are just ahead of you in times normally, they race at night and the track is slower. Or vice versa. So in the morning rounds, the fast guys are up first. So all the fast guys have been up, then you're up and the track is dry and it's daytime. That's when you saw huge differences in results. So you take someone who maybe normally would finish 60th, and then they had a same kind of run again, and then they finished 25th. Or the opposite, you have someone who tends to finish every round, like 25th, 30th, something. Then they have a slow track, and the guys who are normally a bit slower than him have a fast track, and then he's 60th in the round. So you don't look at the very fastest guys because you can't tell really what the conditions are, because they'll always make their way. Over 10 minutes, they'll always be at the top pretty much. You look at the guys after that, and there you see huge differences. And then again, when you go far enough down the list, I think it doesn't really make a difference, because those people crash so much that regardless of what the track conditions are, if they just crash twice less, they'll go faster. Or if they crash more, they'll go slower. So you can't really blame the track on that. But they're in the middle where there's a lot of people. So I would say the people who are still serious about their racing and they spend time and money and effort to go racing, and they place 15th to 50th in a qualifying round, for those people, the track conditions make a difference. And when it's unfair for someone there, it's frustrating, it's annoying. So I would say, for the track holding up, yes, great. It's good they watered, and in the mains, the track was awesome. But if we're gonna spend 8 days racing the clock, then it's stupid to go to a track that isn't consistent, because you're just basically wasting 8 days. Then you get to the main, and then you race. Yes, I noticed, because I know some drivers who were on a fast track and who had that one magic round, only because they were on a fast track, and the opposite too. So yes, I did notice. I don't know if you noticed, but that's kind of where I finished. I was so slow in qualifying, I was about 30th to 50th place. So I did notice who was beating me in some rounds and where they normally finished. So I paid attention. So that's the watering. Okay, so I wanted to let's start with the EOS. This EOS thing, it's really frustrating me. So we have to start with that. First, I need a drink. My new sponsor, Pocari Sweat. Pocari. Okay, we have to talk about this EOS, but I think it's not going to be what you think. First of all, I want you to keep something in mind. Forget about the people involved in this or these incidents. Okay, it's not personal. This is not about these people. I realized I came up with the term CTO, and it was literally just a one-line joke in a blog that was a commentary to a race video. Okay, but it became much bigger than that, because I guess when there's a grain of truth in something, in a joke like that, people run with it. Like the Captain Club race thing. It was literally just a joke on here on Facebook Live, but it became something bigger because people identified with it. He's a good driver, he goes to a lot of club races, and he always wins. So he's the captain of club racing, so it became a thing. CTO, which is Coelho Takeout, it became a thing because at the time, at least, when Bruno was kind of coming through the ranks and when he broke onto the scene, he had a tendency to just ruin other people, like just run through them like they didn't exist. So that sort of takeout became a CTO, and people started using it. But I'm explaining this because the reason I'm highlighting these incidents is not because it's Bruno. It's because of the incidents themselves. And these things happen all the time, and they involve all different drivers. So forget about who the people are in these incidents, okay? That's number one. Number two, let's try and think about the idea, not just this single incident. Like, I'll show you on video, we'll talk about it. These things happen all the time, as I said. This applies to all of them. So I'm not specifically only talking about these two drivers. I'm not specifically only talking about this race and these events. I'm talking in general, okay? And I know that this is, the Neo logo is the wrong way. I didn't flip the video. That's because I want to show you on the screen the incidents I'm talking about, and it's easier when they are the right way around. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. There are a few things I want to bring up about this, but let's look at it first. Okay, so here we go. This is the one in leg 3. Actually, let's put some sound on here so we can hear what's happening. Let's go back a bit. Okay, so racing for the win here. Oops. Still getting going. Still in first place. Stops and waits. So let's go back here. I forgot to put the sound on. Let's watch it again.
Into the lead. Here comes the X-ray, step up, step off. Here turns the overall win. Bruno needs to win this leg. Michael won the first one and has the best time so far. Bruno, you've got to wait for that one.
Okay, so let's go back and just see what happened here first.
Bruno needs to win this leg. Michael won the first one.
So, going into the corner, there's a good gap, right? And then what happens? Orlovsky goes wide. Orlovsky made a mistake. He went too wide. Bruno is actually on the racing line. So Orlovsky went wide. Now he's heading back onto the racing line and to the jump. And Bruno's there in the corner. Boom. T-bone. Complete T-bone. Most likely not intentional. Orlovsky did go wide. There was a gap. And he just did the corner normally. But Orlovsky was coming back online, which is expected. So I would say this is a racing incident. I doubt he was going like, oh, I'm going to take him out. I don't think he was intentionally doing that. Look how far Orlovsky is. Look how far from the corner Orlovsky is. There's a clear gap there. I mean, Bruno really has an argument here, like he was going to try and overtake. Orlovsky cuts back into the racing line. You see that? Boom. It all happens super quick. But that's not really what I want to talk about here. I don't want to talk about who did what, whose fault is it. In a situation like this, where second place takes out first place, especially in that moment, you can't really assess who is to blame. So just about every time, if the leader didn't make a clear mistake and that's why he crashed, then second place is at fault. In this situation, Orlovsky was leading, he goes a bit wide, he continues, and Bruno T-bones him. Okay, it's Bruno's mistake, he should have been more patient, he has to wait. Now what I really want to talk about here is what happens afterwards. But before that, I want to highlight something else. So we saw this situation, right? This is something every driver and team member and mechanic does. So we saw this crash, right?
Bruno, you got to wait for that one.
You got to wait for that one here to wait. What happened then was Bruno actually pulled off the track and went to yell at the announcer and complain that this isn't fair because this happened to me in race 1 and there was no penalty given. So let's look at race 1. So heading up to the same corner again.
Getting a bit of a break already. We've got Quello behind them. So we've got Una followed by Daniel. Those are battling for 4th and 5th place, side by side for the lead here. Already Quello on the defensive move there, ends up off the track. Quello on the defensive.
Let's go back and look at that again, because I didn't really see the same thing happening here. Okay, so let's see. First of all, he comes up short on the double. You see he came up short, so he doesn't have the speed going into this corner. So Orlovsky is suddenly catching up really fast. So already here you can see he was all wobbly, out of shape going into the corner, and Orlovsky is on the brakes going in on the inside of him. Boom. He touches here. Before the corner they touch, but Orlovsky is avoiding it, so neither car crashes. So from exiting the corner here, there's no contact. Now Bruno is just accelerating on his own and Orlovsky is behind him. But most likely because of the contact here, the car wasn't exactly where he wanted. When he accelerated, he wasn't in full control. So he jumps to the left and crashes. So why I wanted to talk about this situation is because everyone does it. I do this also. I've done it many times. And I'm sure when Bruno saw the video, he realized he was wrong. But we tend to be so in our own zone, so subjective when we make up our opinions, that these two things, which were completely different, they felt the same to him. And I've done the same thing at a track. I think someone took me out. Then I see a video and actually he didn't, or it was a complete accident, or something else happened. So I think it's hard, it is hard to control your emotions in these situations, but far too many times someone gets emotional or mad, and then if they only saw a video afterwards, they would realize that they're wrong. And in this case, you can't compare the two situations. The first one I showed you, the one in race 3, it was a complete 100% T-bone. This one, the leader makes a mistake, slows down, second place slows down to avoid contact, they barely touch before the corner, and then after the corner there's no contact and the leader crashes on his own. So hardly the same thing. So my first point would be to, when you are racing, to realize that you don't always see things how they actually are. This goes for everyone. It goes for world champions, it goes for club races, it goes for company owners, team managers, even referees, actually, yeah. But I think it's mainly like the driver who is in it, and then the driver's closest ally, his mechanic, his father, his brother, something like that. Like, those people tend to see things in a super biased way. And I feel like this just highlighted it really well, because it was the same corner. You can compare the incidents in the same corner. They were completely different. But in his mind, in that moment, without seeing the video, they were the same. So this is just something you should keep in mind. And then we get to the really interesting thing. So after this happens now in race 3, let's go back. We dealt with race 1, no big deal. We're gonna get back to that also. But let's watch what happens in race 3 again, and then watch what happens after the incident. And I'm gonna need your comments on this also. So, clear T-bone, and then he's told he has to wait. So he's still leading here. He's being told he has to wait. So he pulls wide, waits. Orlovsky goes by, now he continues behind Orlovsky. So now he obviously can't win anymore, he just pulls off. This is where I need your comments too, because my question is, in this situation, you're in second place, racing incident occurs, you get the lead, second place crashes. What should the penalty be? And the reason I say this is that waiting doesn't really work. And this is the reason. What if in this situation Orlovsky's car had broken? So he's being told he has to wait. So he pulls to the side, he waits until Orlovsky goes by, he continues. Everyone seems to think that, okay, that's fine. Well, what if Orlovsky broke in that situation? How long does he wait? Who decides that? How many positions does he have to let by? What if they had a 10-second lead? Did he just need to pull over for 5 seconds and then continue in the lead? Or did he have to wait until someone gets by? Or what? Like, there needs to be some sort of clear penalty for these situations, in my opinion. And to be honest, I don't know what the real answer is. That's why I said I need your comments, because I was thinking about this for RCGP. Let's say it's the last race of the season and David Ronefalk and Ty Tessman are fighting for the win, and whoever wins the last race wins the overall championship. Now, there's a lot of money on the line. There's possible, sponsorship deals for the next year. There's a lot on the line, and just pride also. And a situation like this happens. Second place takes out first place. What's the penalty? Because I think waiting isn't really a good one. A good race director could call that all day. In both situations, the leader was at fault. Yeah, well, that's not how racing works. You can be in the lead and make a mistake, and you don't deserve to be taken out for that. Stop and go. Okay, so how long is a stop and go? Is there predetermined? If the rule just is clear, so if you take someone out, you just continue on the track, and then you have to come in for a stop and go. Is there a time set for it? This is probably the best way to do it, with an actual stop and go. There's a time set, and the time is long enough to wait, covers all these situations. So maybe something like this. So let's take this situation. You get taken out. The second place guy who inherits the lead has two options. He waits for the guy to continue, or there's continue ahead of him and then follows him again. So let's say two cars are pulled away from the pack. The other one gets taken out. Then the guy who took the other guy out just waits. Then they continue first and second again. That's the one option. Or if he just keeps on going, he can do a stop and go for a predetermined amount of time. That could work, but the time needs to be long enough to where it's guaranteed that as long as the guy who got taken out didn't brake, he can continue and get ahead of the guy who took him out. Because let's say that these guys had a big lead. Let's say the stop and go is 5 seconds. They had a 10-second lead. Second place takes out the leader, continues, does his stop and go, and if the crash was longer than 5 seconds, then he'll continue in the lead. So it was worth it for him. Do you see what I mean? So this is a really tricky situation. That's why I said I don't really know what the penalty should be, because every situation is different. A 10-second penalty, that could work. 10 seconds is enough to where as long as the guy who got taken out continues, he will get by in 10 seconds. For the guy who took the driver out, it makes sense to wait, because most of the time you won't wait 10 seconds. So most of the time it makes sense to pull over, wait, the other guy continues, and then you follow him again. That's going to be less of a penalty than going for a stop and go for 10 seconds. But then it's also clear that if you wait, for example, but then the guy you took out breaks because of your takeout, then you just continue and you have to do your 10-second stop and go. Maybe that's the right way to do it. Rubbing is racing, get over it. Yeah, we know rubbing is racing, but you have to think, that's why I said think about this in another situation. Think that it's a world championship. Think that it's the biggest race of your life. There has to be some rules that are fair, and you can always apply the same way. So in this situation, I mean, T-bone, you have to wait, he waited, and that's it. Both of their races were ruined. But like I said, what if Orlovsky had broken? What then? How long does he wait? So if there's no rule for that, then we are in dangerous territory of someone just making things up. Keep going and penalties at the end of the race, if any. Well, that's also a difficult situation, because then you're basically this decision after the race is determining who wins, and that's not a situation you want to be in. Maybe the 10-second stop and go is the best way to do it. Higher level with video, race on and review video by Stewart type of thing. Yeah. I think the video thing is good when it's a very questionable situation. Like maybe the one from race 1 was questionable. Maybe you didn't know that, did they hit on takeoff or what happened? But I mean, the race 3 one was pretty obvious the first time you see it. I mean, how much more do you want to see there? Okay, next point. So my first point really was that drivers and their man friends, their fathers, their mechanics, they tend to be super subjective, looking at things from their own point of view. So you have two incidents, completely different, but you see them as the same. And this happens to everyone. I do it. I've seen people do it at the track, and even world champions do it. So without video, you have a clear idea of what happened. Then you see a video and you realize that you were completely wrong. So just keep this in mind before you get too emotional at the track and you start yelling at someone else. Maybe just take a step back and listen to some other people's opinions, or if there's video, watch the video. Because as you can see, these two situations were completely different, but in the mind of the driver, they were the same. Second point was, in a situation where second place takes out the leader, there needs to be a clear rule. What happens? Because if you just say wait, it's very unclear. What if the guy you took out breaks? What happens then? How long do you wait? There has to be a rule for that, I think. And now we get to my favorite. This is really why I decided to talk about this. Some of you who have seen these Facebook Lives before may know what I'm talking about. For this, we actually have to go back to race 1. Go back to race 1, because watch what happens after the leader crashes. So here we are. We're about to have a mistake. Boom. Okay, so he was in the lead. He made a mistake on the jump. He's just on the gas and just hops the pipe. Now he's heading the wrong way. So he hops the pipe again. And here we go. This is my pet peeve in RC racing. This is why I wish I had, you know, an ability to just explode any car on the track that I wanted. I would have a button And when this happens, I could just press it and the car would explode. Okay, so the leader's going here, second place is here. Hops the pipe here. Stops. Where? Oh, goes a bit. Realizes, oh no. Stops. Pulls to the side. Let's go back a bit. Now, we all do this. I've done this. But I'm just saying, this is something we need to get rid of in this sport. You can't cut the track. Okay, hops the pipe. Let's stop right here. So, in real racing, what should happen now? So it crashes here, cuts the track there. Now, he should turn, go back here, the marshal should get him, put him back here, and then continue, right? The reason for this is that he made a mistake. He did the jump, crashed here, hopped the pipe, hopped here, and is now on here, the wrong side of the track. He needs to get back here and continue. Otherwise, he hasn't completed the lap. Let's say this line right here is the loop. This is your transponder line. So he crashes here, jumps over here, continues. What happens? He doesn't cross the loop, he doesn't get the lap. So for situations like this, I think it's really simple. If you cut the track, then you miss that lap. One lap off your result. Unless this driver here goes back here and completes the lap, then one lap removed from his result. Now you might say, well, he waited, so it's fine. No, it's not fine, because look what happens. So let's go back a bit so we can see the whole situation. And then I'll explain why waiting doesn't work. Crash from the lead, jumping over the pipe. First place is here, second place is here, third place is here, fourth place is here, if we don't count this car now, right? Now he recovered from here. Now what he needs to do is go back here and complete the lap. So if he goes back here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth place is going to be ahead of him. Sixth place is going to be ahead of him. Seventh place, most likely, is also going to be ahead of him. Imagine he turns now and tries to get over here. Most likely, this car will still get ahead of him. Well, look what happens. We just determined that these two would definitely be ahead. Instead of turning this way, he would turn this way and go back over here. He would be here now. Maybe he would get lucky and just pop over real quick. He would be right there. Maybe at best he would now be here on the inside with this green car. Maybe he would just make it ahead of this green car into the corner. So he might be here right now if he tried going back. Most likely he would be even further back. But look, he's continuing right there. So instead of being here or behind this car, he's 2 cars ahead, 3 cars if you count that, going there. Because he didn't wait long enough, and no one does. Drivers only wait enough to eliminate any gain they had. Like, they basically wait long enough so their lap time is the same as it normally would have been, or a second slower, something like that. They don't wait enough to actually pay for the mistake they made. So it's irrelevant how many spots he loses. Look, he's in the lead, crashes, cuts the track. Imagine the transponder line is here. No lap, dude. At this point, he needs to turn and go back. Look how quickly these cars go by this section. So imagine he turns and hops the pipe back now. So he turns, hops the pipe. The best case scenario, he can beat this green car. Yet he continues before these 2 cars. He would 100% sure if he went back and completed the lap, he would be behind these 2 cars. Let's watch it one more time and just pay attention to where the other cars are on the track and imagine that he goes to complete the lap.
For 4th and 5th place, side by side for the lead here. Already Coelho on the defensive move there, ends up off the track. Going to cost a couple of spots.
Do you see what I mean? So it's not about how many positions you lose. It's about doing all the laps. If you don't go back and complete the lap, then I don't know, you just have to lose that lap. Like, that should be such a simple rule to have. If you don't complete the lap, you don't get that lap. Okay? Do we agree? You don't need to go backwards. You just hop the pipe back. It's that simple. He didn't need to go backwards on the track. Not what happens in dirt bikes. Next time, don't make the mistake and you won't lose track position. What are you talking about? Everyone makes mistakes. We are talking about what happens after you've made the mistake. And it's not about the driver. Other people do the same thing. And I just think it's not fair. I think you need to do the whole lap. I really like my idea of having a button and then I can just push the button if I see someone do this. And then their car will explode. That's my favorite solution to this. What if he had broke trying to get back over the pipe? Well, tough luck. Don't crash. I mean, he could have waited for the marshal too. The reason you have to finish the lap is, like I said, what if the loop was there? They would have just guessed his lap time? How does that work? No, you have to do the whole lap. I disagree. Had he attempted to hop back over the pipe, he would have likely crossed another vehicle's path, ruining someone else's race. Then he should have waited for the other vehicle to go by. That's stupid. Rejoining the race without gaining an advantage or hindering someone else's race. He just rejoined the race by gaining an advantage. What about that don't you understand? If he had done that, if he made a mistake, he crashed. If he had continued and done the whole lap, he would have lost to the red and the orange car, right? But he didn't. He continued ahead of those two cars. So he just gained that advantage by cutting the track. Jesus, are we watching the same video? In Supercross, if you go off the track, you must re-enter the track at the next safest spot without gaining a position. Well, this isn't Supercross, this is RC cars. We have marshals who marshal your car onto the track. In this case, he should have waited for the green car. Yes, but we know that no one waits for long enough. Never happens. If it's two-wheel drive, he probably would get stuck on the pipe. Fine, then he's stuck on the pipe and the marshal helps him. If he hopped back, he would have interfered with others in the race. Then wait for longer. Technically, he should wait outside of the track and wait to be marshaled appropriately. What if the marshal places you ahead and reduces your damage? This is actually a good one. This is a good one. I think as a driver, every single driver will just take advantage of that. This is really weird because this tends to be a thing that happens in America. In Europe, the marshals always either screw you or just give you exactly what you deserve. So they kind of marshal you where you land. So most drivers in Europe, I think, if you crash before a jump, they'll marshal you and put you down before the jump. Or if you crash just before a hairpin, they'll marshal you just before the hairpin. And to be honest, that's how you should be marshaled. In America, and I say America because I noticed this for the first time when I went to America for the first time. the marshals would, if you crash before a jump, they would pick up your car and throw it over the jump. Now, I'm sure you've all seen this. So you marshal in the jump section and you get thrown on the downside, or on the downside of the first jump, or something like, to make it a bit easier for you. So instead of marshalling your car before the jump, you throw it over the jump or onto the jump, something like that. Also, if there's a section of the track that there's a straight, then there's a tight corner, and then you go back. So if you if you crash on this side, in America, often what happens is the marshal will go pick up the car and put it on the other side, so essentially cutting this corner out. And it always, I never understood why people did this. It's like they're so friendly. I'm just gonna help you out. Oh, I was a bit slow getting to your car, so I'm just gonna make up for it. And it's like, don't you realize you're racing against these people? Or the other people in this race are racing against them, so they don't appreciate the fact that you're doing this guy a favor. So I've noticed that some marshals definitely are too kind in the way they marshal. So they sort of try to eliminate the driver's mistake by marshalling better than they should. The jump thing is fine. I mean, it can even be a safety issue. Like if the jump face is blind and you just put the car down, the driver can't see their car, or someone else is about to jump, you know, so that I can understand. But the fact that you would put the car down on the other side of the track marking so the driver doesn't have to do a corner or something like that, which happens surprisingly many times. For example, this is actually this situation. Let's say that the same thing happens. The car crashes, hopes the first pipe is between the two pipes and gets stuck. Many cases, especially like racing at OCRC in California, in that same situation, the marshal would run up, pick up the car and put it where the car actually cut the track and continue. That's where the marshal would place the car. Not place it back where it came from, but place it on the side that the driver wanted to get to. Even if the marshal sees the whole situation, that's still what they would do. And that's wrong, but that's much harder to police or penalize, because what are you going to do? Like, the driver can't control what the marshal is doing. He did wait, clown. Anthony, if I was there, I'd slap you right now. Yes, he did wait, but he didn't wait long enough. You're the donkey here. He waited and let, 3 cars pass, when he should have let 5. Absolute minimum 5, maybe even 6. You can determine from the video. If he had done the whole lap, he would be behind the red and orange car. Okay, so he did wait, he just didn't wait long enough. Chris is right. If he didn't complete the lap, then it shouldn't be counted. It's that simple. You cut the track like that, you can wait for 7 cars to go by. It doesn't matter. Didn't get the lap. You have to go back. You have to do it. If it's a location, see, this is where it gets tricky. Even in the same race, there's this the wall ride section. So he hits the apex of the wall ride and slides down. And then he's on the pipe, just skips the pipe onto the straight and continues. Now in this situation, you have to have common sense. In that situation, he was already up at the apex of the wall ride and slid down on the pipe. And when you ride on the at the bottom of the wall ride, you probably can't even get up it anymore without crashing. So you have to use common sense too. You lost time because you were grinding on the pipe, you lost the position, you get back on track, you continue. That's fine. First situation, it's just flat track and cutting off like 5 meters of the track. That's a no-brainer. Maybe the rule should be, if you make a mistake like that, you're not allowed to get back on the track till the marshal can put you back on. Well, I don't agree, because what if the marshal wasn't paying attention and you can get back on the track yourself? Then you do it. You're right, JQ, he should have waited. Yeah, he should have waited for the marshal. Cody Grams. I'm gonna explain this one more time, Cody, okay? Cody Grams is saying, he went from first to fifth or sixth. Where was the advantage? Now I know someone said beating a dead horse, but this horse isn't dead, okay? I'm beating a horse, but it clearly isn't dead. So we're going back. We're gonna go back here. Is this even the right video? Yes, it is. Okay, this is especially for Cody. Okay, look, Cody, orange car, first place. White and blue, green, pukey looking car, second place. Okay, landing a jump. Oops, made a mistake. This orange car just half a second ago was in first place ahead of this pukey looking car here. Okay, there's another orange, slightly brighter orange, more yellowy looking car here. Okay, that's third place. So now, first place car made a mistake in second place currently. Oops, what's happening now? As you can see, that the first place car is now over here. So he completed this left-hander going into the right-hand corner. Now the orange and white car that was leading before, he's now hopping pipes over here. So he skipped over this pipe and now skipping over the second pipe. Now the brighter orange car, which turns out actually it looks like it's yellow and red, it has now proceeded from third place from over here on the jump. It's completed this section of the track and is now at this corner here. Okay, so you're still following me? In the meantime, there's a green and black car here and a yellow car here, which they're also completing the track here. So let's just go on just for a second or two. Okay, here we go. Now it's getting interesting. So as you can see, there are many cars here now. So the original second place guy is over here. He took the lead, now he's first. Third place guy is now second. And here we have the white and orange car that hopped some pipes. So as you remember, he made the mistake here. Hop the first pipe, hop the second pipe over here. And now he just turned left to continue, okay, instead of turning right. So instead of turning left here and continuing, if he had hopped back over the pipe, where would he be now? Okay, Cody, let's do this together. So he would definitely be behind this car. He would definitely be behind this car. He would definitely be behind this car. And let's go back and see, can he beat this orange car? We know definitely he could not beat that car. Let's go back. Okay, let's watch again. Cody, are you still with me, Cody Grams? He went from first to fifth or sixth. Where was the advantage? Let's check where the advantage was. So now he needs to go back to finish the lap. Otherwise he's gaining an advantage. He made a mistake, and now instead of suffering the full consequences of his mistake, he's gonna gain an advantage. So now imagine, instead of doing that sharp left, he did a sharp right, and he's hopping over the pipes, hopping back over. So now we can see, okay, he's not gonna beat this car. I mean, it's just too fast for him. Maybe he has hopped over the pipe now, and he can follow this car. We agree on that? Okay, so let's see where he continues. Oh, look. The white and orange car waited for a second there and continues behind the yellow car instead of here where he should be. So the advantage he gained by hopping these two pipes, he made a mistake, which obviously is a bad thing, and he's going to lose positions. But then instead of finishing the lap, he cut the track and gained an advantage of 2 spots. Minimum 2 spots. Okay? Cody, I hope you understood my explanation. Okay, I'm not going back. I'm not going to do that again. It will never be good enough for JQ, drama queen. I'm just a RCSJW. Okay, people want to talk about Ongaro's speed. Oops, I waved to someone. That was a mistake, sorry. I waved. If I get screwed by a marshal, can we take time off my run? No, I don't think so. That's why I said, if the marshal helps you or hinders you, then that's a really tough situation. That's a shit luck thing. I'm not starting drama. I just talked about car colors, you know? I don't care who the people are. I care about what happened. This happens way too much. And then when it happens to win a world championship, which it also has happened actually in the past, it's a big deal. So why don't we just deal with it, come up with some rules to stop this? In America, the marshal always puts your car ahead, exactly. Have you had a similar incident and not waited long enough? Yes, every time. Pretty much every time. That's why there should be rules for that. Next time we will throw you back on the previous turn then. I think you mean that. I think you mean throw. Keenan says enough science mode. Yeah, but that one guy didn't understand. Cody Grams. Here we are. Heat of the moment. The whole thing took place in what, 4 seconds? Yes, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm saying we need a rule for this. I'm saying when drivers do this, they shouldn't, you know, benefit. There should be a rule for that. Everyone wants to talk about gyros. You don't have common sense. Anthony, you don't have common sense. Catching up with the comments here. When did they get microwaves in the Philippines? Oh, Lucas. No more explaining, says Keenan. Okay, so we're gonna have to move on now. JQ, is it true the next World Championships are going to be held in Brazil? Actually, I don't know. I heard Brazil too, which is quite surprising. But we'll have to wait and see. I haven't heard anything official. We need a blood pressure meter on the video so I can see JQ's blood pressure rise. Okay, I'm gonna have to skip a lot of, obviously you were commenting a lot when I was going nuts. Okay. So what were my 3 points? 1, as a driver, you're very subjective. You don't see what actually happens. So before you hand out a beat down on some other guy or yell at him or get super mad, just make sure you have your facts straight. Because most likely, even if you're a world champion, you see 2 situations very differently than reality. So keep that in mind. I need to remember that too. I need to chill, listen to some other people, see some video, then I know what actually happened. 2, we need a rule for if the second place guy takes out first place, doesn't matter really the position, but if someone gets taken out, waiting, that's not a good rule. What if the other car breaks? How long do you wait? And then lastly, if you cut the track, I think you should just lose that lap. Simple. If you don't do the lap, you should lose it. You can't wait. No one waits long enough. You have to do the lap. Okay, we're done with this. EOS, we're done with EOS. Let's talk about Ongaro. So I watched, AKA had Facebook Live, and I watched it. It was pretty good. You should go watch it. I shared it on my Facebook too. Gil Losi was talking about tires and compounds and worlds and all that stuff. And then he mentioned something about gyros, which I didn't say because I don't have first-hand experience. I want to do a gyro test. We can actually talk about Patreon and that thing after this. So I didn't say it, but he said something which has always been my, what's the word? Not theory, but not doubt either. Similar to theory or doubt. There's a word for that. I can't think of it. Suspicion. Yeah, it's always been my suspicion. So the point of a gyro, these basic gyros we have are available for us, and the kind of gyro that people are blaming or claiming Ongaro is using. What it does is it turns the wheels to correct for a slide. Now you can dial more gyro in or less. So as a driver, your inputs will override the gyro more or less. But let's say you accelerate onto a straight and the car starts to slide. Well, before you have time to react to this, the gyro will correct it with the front wheels by turning the wheels to keep the car straight. The most clear and the biggest benefit you can have of a gyro is on a two-wheel drive car, on a rear wheel two-wheel drive car, on a slippery track. So let's say you just want to accelerate and you just get on the throttle and you accelerate and the rear end is going to start doing this, right? As a driver, it's very hard to control, but a gyro will control it so precisely and quickly, and instead of accelerating like this, it would just go straight. A perfect gyro would just make it go straight. That's crazy. Even without traction control, it's really good at just keeping the car straight by adjusting the wheels. Now, where this becomes a problem is with the very best drivers, like Ongaro. I was actually trying to find some, because obviously I'm not prepared for this, I was trying to find a couple of sections of video to show you of him driving. But what's obvious when you watch the best drivers race is that they are in full control of placing their car how they want. So if they want to get by someone and take a different line, they will slide their car more to turn tighter, square up a corner. They are able to do all these things. So their car isn't always in full traction mode, just going exactly where they are sliding and moving and pitching their car sideways. And those are the sorts of movements that a gyro wants to eliminate. So just, Gil mentioned this too, when they would land that triple, the very top drivers, they would turn the car a bit, or when they took off, so the car would fly a bit sideways, and then they would land already heading into the corner, so a bit sideways into the corner. Now those are all the sorts of things that the gyro wouldn't like. So if anything, it would have to be turned down really low. Also, going into some corners, maybe you slide into the corner and then pitch the car around. Well, I don't know how you do that if you have a gyro that notices you're sliding into the corner and wants to straighten that out. So for me, the whole gyro thing doesn't make sense. And that's why, because there's so much talk about it, I actually want to get some gyros and do a test and just openly explain what I feel and also what my lap times say. Now, I'm not saying that gyros don't help. They do help, but they help the lower level drivers. So the beginners to sort of average drivers who tend to make mistakes because they lose control, or they have slower lap times because on that lap they started sliding, or they missed their mark, they went too fast and were sliding around in the dust, or they make these kind of mistakes like missing their brake points and giving it too much gas. And so when they make mistakes, they lose time or crash because they lose control. For those drivers, a gyro can help. I really do believe so. But for the world's top racers who, when they make mistakes, it's because they clip a curb, because they misjudge the corner a bit, or they mistime a jump because they're trying to be perfect. They don't really make mistakes where they lose control. Their mistakes are more judgment errors because they're trying to be too perfect. And I don't see how a gyro can help there. So if you say, oh, he's more consistent, that's why he's using a gyro. Well, I don't see how a gyro can help in a situation where you are taking such a tight line that you clip a curb and you flip over. Like, a gyro doesn't know that the curb is approaching. You could say, okay, so he doesn't clip the curb because the car doesn't do anything surprising. But many times when you watch that's not why they clip the curb. It's just they are going so close every lap. The car is doing everything right, but then the one lap they just went a bit too tight. So I just don't see how the gyro can benefit the very best drivers in the world. But that's why I want to do the test. So okay, so the question is, if he's not using a gyro, then why is he so fast? And Gil was saying that it has something to do with his setup, the way he sets his car up, and I agree. I think it has a lot to do with what I've spoken about before, which is invisible speed, which people make fun of because they don't understand. Gyros help with unexpected bumps and clipping a pipe, and it will correct it. Okay, so maybe if you clip the curb, it would correct it so fast that it's faster than what the driver could do. Okay, well, we'll know these things after I've tested them. Okay, so invisible speed. I remember when I spoke about this, and when I mentioned this, people just laugh and make fun of it, but that's because they don't understand it. And I think in Ongaro's case, his sort of invisible speed is so good that it becomes visible. And that's what I wanted to show. That's what I wanted to show on video, but I didn't prepare well enough, so I don't have a perfect clip to show you. What I mean with invisible speed is you as a driver are doing and feeling the exact same thing. So you brake, turn into a corner, you throttle it, go through the corner, accelerate out. You do the same thing. The car feels the same. It's just as easy to drive. You don't really notice a difference as a driver, but then your lap times are faster. That's invisible speed to me. Mainly invisible speed is corner speed and acceleration. So traction when you just accelerate. So you can have two cars and everything is identical except the setup, and you accelerate, and one car will accelerate faster than the other. That has to do with how you set the car up. Now, we don't just go in a straight line, we corner also. So how fast you can get through the corner and what speed you can enter the next straight, that's where the difference is really made up. All the best drivers now, they can do the same things on the jumps. It's the corners, the speed you carry through the corners, and how fast you can accelerate out. That's what makes a difference. And I've never driven Ongaro's car, but the people who have driven his setup that he has given people, I don't know if he gives out all his secrets or if he keeps some for himself, but they've all said that the car is very loose and it's hard to drive and they can't deal with it. But the thing is that he has been driving this setup for many years, and for him it doesn't feel loose. I'm sure for him it feels good and he's comfortable driving it. Now, the two things that I noticed on his car, and I've noticed them at other races too, which makes his setup fast, is he runs very little toe-in. And also, at least at the Euros and here at the Worlds, when I felt his car, his front suspension is really hard. So I think there's two things that I can conclude from that. So one is, with the hard front suspension, he can enter corners really aggressively. He can be very fast into corners, aggressive, and the front end will stay high. It won't dump as much as if it was soft and plush. So you can be more aggressive, like throw the car into a corner more, and it will stay stable. It won't dive on the front end and raise the rear end up and lose traction in the rear and want to spin out. So he can go in really hard and it will stay flat. The flatter the car stays, the more control he has over it and the more overall grip the car will have. So he can go into the corner really hard, push the car, and then when he's in the corner, he gets on the gas to maintain the stability on the car. But he gets on the gas just the right amount, not too much to spin it out and not too little, just the right amount. And what happens then is when he's in the corner, you can actually see it probably on some videos, but on the World's track, you had the straight on the side, then you turned right and you had the steps down, then you had that one jump. Then those next corners, find a place in the video where he's in second place behind Mayfield. So he goes down the steps, the single jump into that corner, then it's left, left, short shoot into a, sorry, you go right, right, short shoot into a downhill left, and then another left into the first double jump. That section, watch him and his car go through that section. When he did it right, it was one fast motion. It was like he did the steps, did the single, then it was when the other drivers would go, you could kind of see them go, okay, left, left, straight, sorry, right, right, straight, left, and then left to the jump. You could see them do the individual steps. When he did it right, it was just one motion, like, and he was right up on Mayfield again. Now that sort of section, these are all great drivers. To be able to string a section like that together, where the car is basically going, changing directions, slightly drifting, not sideways drifting, but kind of rally car drifting, where the rear is just slightly to the side, drifting around, going from those two right-handers to going straight to going left downhill, to make that one smooth motion. What helps him is his towing. He doesn't have much rear towing. And what that does, it greatly increases corner speed, because it doesn't make the rear want to stick. So you're not fighting the rear end to where you're turning one direction and the car kind of wants to go straight because of the towing. So you're turning it, then it straightens out, then it wants to stay straight, and then you have to turn it the other direction. When you have towing and the rear has grip, that's what's happening to the car. You have to kind of force it to turn. When you don't have much towing in the rear, that effect is much smaller. So the car just naturally will turn. And then when you want to turn the other way, it will just more naturally just start turning the other way. So it isn't locked on going straight as much. So it isn't fighting you in the corner. It will just rotate around the corner. And then when you want to turn the other way, it just turns the other way instead of trying to stay straight. So the fact that he runs a stiff front end suspension setup makes it possible for him to be able to enter the corners fast and aggressively without the car diving, so it stays more flat. And then when he gets in the corner, he's going fast already, he maintains the speed using his throttle, and the fact that he doesn't have much rear towing, which makes the rear end slide, but he controls the slide with his driving. This is why I think people find his car hard to drive, because the setup he runs is in tune with his inputs. You have to run the right amount of throttle to get the most of his car. And also his mechanic told me this. He said that you have to drive the car aggressively to make it work. And I completely believe that, watching how he goes around the track and just knowing this about his setup, where the front end and front suspension is hard and he doesn't run much towing. So I think that's the thing about his setup that makes him fast, the corner speed aspect. So the setting of the car isn't made to be safe or super easy to drive. It's made to be fast. And I think that's what we are saying. That's what we are seeing. He's driving really well, his inputs are good, but the car also allows him to be fast. He's just a young kid with unreal reactions and hand-eye coordination. I don't agree. There are many young kids with unreal reactions and hand-eye coordination. So there's more to it than that. Yeah, Lutz said he watched the main and Ongaro had the best throttle control of anyone he has seen, making the car quicker through the corners and off corners. Yes, it's a combination of his throttle control and setup. They work together. And the fact that, and I would say right now, it's a combination of everything. It's the clutch an engine he runs. It's the car, it's the tires, and he's driving. Everything works together, and it's just working together perfectly. Stick control, I don't know that the stick controller really makes, I mean, it makes a difference, but I don't know that it makes him faster or slower for that fact. So I think it's just different. A loose setup will always be faster but more on edge. Well, it depends on what on edge is. I mean, is it more on edge for him? Not necessarily. He looks completely comfortable driving that way. His tires went away, but he had the fastest laps after halfway also. I think more than the tires going away, I think the track went away, because when the track dried, it always got dustier. So I think what happened was the line was probably still good, but even that was dusty in sections, but then outside the line it got much dustier. So I think that was the biggest problem. Yep. Okay, so let's take a question here. Are OS engines really that good compared to other brands, other engine brands? What makes them much better? Asking for a friend. Well, OS has kind of been the what's the word? OS has been the benchmark. There we go. Benchmark when it comes to engines. I'm trying to think why. It's been a long time. They just have they have a lot of power and top end, but controllable power. I think in the past they also had really good runtime compared to other engines, and then also in the past they were more reliable. So they would always run. You wouldn't have problems. Maybe some other engine brands you would risk flameouts and kind of phantom flameouts. Like you don't know why you flamed out. You thought everything was fine and then you flamed out. And OS didn't really have that. So in the past, OS was definitely, in my opinion, the benchmark as far as engines go. They did have, let's say now, like 10 years ago maybe, they had a point where they had bad bearings, and then they had an engine model which wasn't that good. I think it was after the blue top V-spec. So they did have one stage where they weren't that good, then they came back again. And since that comeback, I think 10 years ago, then again, it's just been seen as the benchmark. Now, I think, since this question came about because Mayfield ran an OS instead of a Reds, I even told Reds this, it's quite ironic that it happened now. Because I think if it had happened, say, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, hell, maybe even 1 year ago, there's a really good, there's a good argument to be made. Because I think, even Hara tried my car, I think, in 2015, maybe, I think 15. And he was like, if I had an OS in this, this was at the Cinetic track, so remember, a huge track. Drove my car and he's like, if I had my OS in this, I would probably be 1 second faster, he said. And that was because the engine was slow, top end was slow. And since then, when I've tried OS engines, when I've tried someone's JQ car, for example, and they have whatever version of OS in it, I always noticed that it was faster. Like the top speed was more, I didn't have to pull the trigger as much to do the same on the track, which led me to believe I don't have to drive as aggressively, I can be smoother, and still be fast. Maybe I can have better run time, because I don't need to pull the trigger as much. So that's something I've been working on my Reds. And now, at the Worlds, I was running my WR7 2.0, 2113 pipe, L manifold, and honestly it felt like it was the best it's been for me. So top speed was much better. Initially it's really smooth, then mid-range is good, and then, as I said, top speed was better than before. So for me, my Reds engine was like the best it's ever been. And then that's the race, that's the situation that this happens. So it's kind of sad for Reds, because the new engine with that pipe combination, the new 3-needle carb, it's been really good. And I say it's better than what they've had before. Now, I haven't tried an OS back-to-back comparing to that. But what I could imagine is the feeling now, like the power band, I think is probably very close. If the Reds lacks anything, then my guess would be it still lacks that kind of mid to top end speed. That's what I could imagine. But I would need to try back to back to know. So in the past, definitely I think OS was the benchmark. It was the engine to have because of reliability, runtime, and just power and speed. But I think now there's much less of an argument. I think if Mayfield had run the Reds, I think he could have done just the same. So I don't think he would have flamed out. I think his runtime would have been the same. When did he stop? Just like everyone else, I think, 7:30. And it's not like the OS has so much more power that, especially on that track, that it would be noticeable. My runtime was 9:20. So on runtime, there's definitely, I definitely think improvements can be made. But he wasn't, for example, Mayfield wasn't doing some long runtime runs. So that wasn't really an advantage for him. So for me, I think him switching the engine at that race is more like a mental thing than an actual advantage thing. That's what I think. He's working closely with Adam. He's had some trouble with the Reds before, and he just wasn't confident in it. It was more a confidence thing, I think. Not a pure performance thing, more of a confidence thing. For him, in his mind, if he had an OS, he was more confident that things would go his way. That's what I think. But for runtime, I think for his driving style, probably pretty close to the same. Power, as I said, maybe the OS mid to top is better. I haven't tried now recently with the new pipe combination I'm running. Reliability, I would say, is the same. So, yeah, that's my opinion. He still pitted 7:30, exactly. So whatever runtime difference there was irrelevant at that point. Worried about flameouts? Okay, so this is the thing with the Reds engine. Some people run the TC5 plug or some other plugs or P4s or forget about that. Just run the TS3, which is the OSP3. You can always run that plug, and when you run that, it's a hot plug. It's not going to flame out the engine. The thing about Reds is you have to tune it a bit differently to what you would tune an OS maybe. An OS could still run fine with very lean setting and low idle, and it would run fine. A Reds doesn't do that. So what I do is I try to tune my low end just right. So not rich, not lean. How I do that is if it's running at the correct temperature, I can have it on the starter box. I can rev it, let's say rev it twice all the way, then just let it idle. And let it idle for 10-15 seconds and then punch it quickly. Now I lean it until when I punch it there's a slight bog. It then it goes. So there's a hesitation. So I know it's too lean. And then I richen it until that bog goes away. Then I know this is the limit. Now it's right on the limit. And either I leave it there or I just richen it a tiny bit from that setting on the bottom end. Then the top end, I set it so it's a tiny bit rich. So even in the first laps, it feels a bit rich. Because then when it heats up on the track, then it's perfect for the whole race. If the first lap my engine is screaming and it's just right, I know it's going to be too lean when it heats up. So in the warm-up, the top end just a tiny bit rich. And then the key thing for the Flameouts is the idle. So on the reds, you have to set your idle a bit higher than what you think. So it can't be a perfect low idle. It should always be one step higher than that. And that's because I feel that when they get hot, what happens is, even if that idle seems to be normal, you go down the straight, you hit the brakes, it drops the idle for that moment. And so it's a combination. If you have a low idle, or low or OS perfect idle, it might flame out when you brake at the end of the straight. And if you're running the 5 plug, it might just flame out for no reason. No reason. Well, the plug is the reason. So if you tune your engine so your idle is a tiny bit high compared to what you would have on an OS, for example, and you're running the TS3 or P3 plug, then I don't think you're going to flame out. I heard JQ versus Mayfield boxing match in May. Pay-per-view. Yeah, if he attends the RCGP. And how can you be more confident? You've been running reds for years, or has he? I believe he's been running both. Do you think we will see another double world champ in 1/8? Yes, we will. I mean, definitely Ongaro, Tessman, or Ronnefalk will win another one. Or Robert, he's also a world champ. So Ongaro, Tessman, Ronnefalk, or Robert battle, one of them is going to win. Okay, are there any more questions, or are we done with this? We covered the EOS. We covered the reasons why I think Ongaro can be so fast. If there are any more questions, we can do that, and then we'll be done. No more? Let's see. There was some on Facebook here. Some Europeans had posted and they aren't online now. If it would just load. Okay, will you be attending the DXR race at Harper Adams? The old Neo was always my favorite race to follow. If I was in Europe, then I would attend the race. Because the thing about the Neo that I really liked was the location. So I liked the track. I liked how they always built the track. It was very US style, consistent. It was just fun. Just driving the track was really fun. And the second thing I liked was everyone stayed at the same place. So we would all stay, almost everyone would stay in the university. So you could just walk to your room, walk to the track. I just liked the whole setup. It was a lot of fun. So if I was in Europe, I would go back, but I'll be in the Philippines, so I won't make the trip over there just for that race. Also, I think it's not that long before the first RCGP, so I'm gonna have to be preparing for that. Can Tebow still win a Worlds? Yes, Tebow can still win a Worlds. Same reason, I won't be at Fall Brawl because I'm so far away from there. How many new engines do you get a year? I don't know, I haven't counted. I get what I need, so. Mechanics handling cars after final. What do you mean, Anthony? What do you mean? We covered the watering already. People say use P4 for hot weather. Well, I would say use P3. Do you think they should have used molasses in the Worlds? yeah, something. I mean, they should have put something on it to bind the dust and then just leave it. That's it. Okay, what else on Facebook? Are you burned out after the Worlds? Well, this is one reason I missed the first 3 days, because I didn't want to get burned out during the Worlds. So had I gone for those 3 extra days of practice, I would have probably been seriously contemplating suicide on the second day of qualifying. Now, it never really caught up to me, so I made it through the race. Did they handle the cars after the Worlds? What the hell do you mean? Do you mean like Ongaro's team? No, they people said like cut wires and stuff like that. That was only because they glued the receiver pack to the extension wire. So it was glued on, so they had to cut the wire to disconnect the car. That was about it. When am I going back to America? I don't know when I'll be back in America. I'm not doing the DNC. More than likely not doing the DNC. That's February. I mean, I guess if I do any race in America, then DNC, because it's in California, it would be easy to do. There's a direct flight from here. I could probably camp out with Degani. That might be fun. So if I'm doing any race, then it would probably be DNC, unless I'm banned, but I haven't heard that I'm banned, at least. Officials didn't have control of the cars at the end of the race. The mechanics had the cars for several minutes. I mean, that was the same at every race. The mechanics handed the cars into technical inspection every time. Talk about Ongaro's brakes. Well, you can see in the video, in the blog I posted in the brakes, how he brakes. It's like ABS. He like pumps the brake. Black Edition e-buggy coming. Yes, at some point. We're still waiting on some samples. Okay, I think that's that. One thing I want to mention though, some people maybe don't understand the whole Patreon thing. If you go on patreon.com/TheQuagraine, you can see it's a crowdfunding site. And right now, I don't know why my internet's so slow. There we go. There's 88 people supporting this Patreon right now. And the point of this is that with Patreon, with crowdfunding, you can do things that are hard to monetize. So you can do stuff that people expect for free. So let's say I want to do a setup guide. Well, I need to spend a lot of time and effort to do it. I would also, if I want to do it properly, I have to pay someone to film video, edit the video. Same for graphic design, pictures. If I want to do a good job, that's what I want to do. I want to make a really, really good guide for 8-scale racing. Both for preparation, for practicing, for racing, and also setup. And you can't really charge for that. People just expect it for free. They just want to go online and they want to download it and have it for free. It's like music now, or even movies. You go online, you just download it, it's free. Why should you pay? That's how people are nowadays. Just want it for free. Well, the problem is, I can't do that for free. I could if I wanted to spend the money and time to do it, but I don't. I have many other things to do. More important, I think. So, if you want the guide, including videos and pictures and explanations of everything to do with racing, then this is a good way to get it. Because when there's enough people who want it, enough people that support, then it's not expensive for anyone. Yes, a lot of people will just download it for free. They'll never pay a penny. But if you can just pay $5 a month, for example, and there's enough of you, then I can afford to do it. We're also doing other things, like we already released the No Name RC podcast, and that's also done thanks to this. Thanks to the support of the people on Patreon, then we can do that. So if you can afford a few dollars a month, and we get enough on you on there, then we'll make the guide. And the more people we get, the more things we can do. We can do an app. We can make an app you can have on your phone, and you can type in the situation you're in, and it will give you examples of what you could change on your car. And it's endless. All the options we can include in an app, for example, are endless, but it costs money and it takes time. So unless we get enough people supporting it, it's not going to happen. So it's up to you. If you're already supporting someone, there's 88 people there. We should be able to double that. Everyone just gets one friend to support. That's it. This isn't, you aren't paying my salary, really. Like, I'm not taking this money and going on a holiday. This money is literally going to paying to be able to do that stuff. So it's up to you. It's up to you. Okay, I think we're done here. Someone needs to end this shit. No one remembers how to end this. I don't mind paying as long as info is worthy. There's only one way to find out. That's eBuggy.